Kuan Yün-ChʻAn releases TSAO. The last chapter closed with Huang Kai in the water wounded. TSAO rescued from immediate danger and confusion rampant among the soldiers. Pressing forward to attack the naval camp, Han Tang was told by his soldiers that someone was clinging to the rudder of his boat and shouting to him by his familiar name. Han Tang listened carefully, and in the voice at once he recognized that Huang Kai was calling to him for help. "That is my friend Huang Kai," cried he, and they quickly pulled the wounded leader out of the water. Then they saw Huang Kai was wounded, for the arrow still stuck. Han bit out the shaft of the arrow, but the point was deeply buried in the flesh. They hastily pulled off his wet garments and cut out the metal arrowhead with a dagger, tore up one of the flags, and bound up the wound. Then Han Tang gave his friend his own fighting robe to put on, and sent him off in a small boat back to camp. Huang Kai's escape from drowning must be taken as proof of his natural affinity for, or sympathy with, water. Although it was the period of great cold, and he was heavy with armor when he fell into the river, yet he escaped with life. In this great battle at the junction of the rivers, when fire seemed to spread wide over all the wide surface of the water, when the earth quaked with the roar of battle, when land forces closed in on both wings and 4 battle squadrons advanced on the front, when the ferocity of fire answered the clash of weapons and weapons were aided by fire, under the thrusts of spears and the flights of arrows, burnt by fire and drowned by water, TSAO lost an incalculable number of men. And a poet wrote, "When Wei and Wu together strove for the mastery, in Red Cliff fight the towering ships vanished from the sea, for there the fierce flames, leaping high, burned them utterly. So Chu Yu for his liege lord got the victory." And another poem runs, "The hills are high, the moon shines faint, the waters stretch afar. I sigh to think how oft this land has suffered stress of war, and I recall how Southerners shrank from the Northmen's might, and how a favoring eastern gale helped them to win the fight." Leaving for a while the story of the slaughter on the river, it is time to follow Kan Ning. He made Tsao-Chung guide him into the innermost recesses of Tsao-Tsao's camp. Then he slew him with one slash of his sword. After this, he set fire to the jungle, and at this signal Lu Meng put fire to the grass in 60 places near to each other. Then other fires were started, and the noise of battle was on all sides. Tsao and the faithful Chang Liao, with a small party of horsemen, fled through the burning forest. They could see no road in front, all seemed on fire. Presently Mao Qi and Wen Piying, with a few more horsemen, joined them. Tsao bade the soldiers seek a way through. Chang Liao pointed out that the only suitable road was through the Black Forest, and they took it. They had gone but a short distance when they were overtaken by a small party of the enemy, and a voice cried, "Tsao, stop!" It was Lu Meng, whose ensign soon appeared against the fiery background. Tsao urged his small party of fugitives forward, bidding Chang Liao defend him from Lu Meng. Soon after he saw the light of torches in front, and from a gorge there rushed out another force. And the leader cried, "Ling Tiang is here." Tsao was scared. His liver and gall both seemed torn from within. But just then on his half right he saw another company approach and heard a friendly cry, "Fear not, O minister, I am here to rescue you." The speaker was Su Huang, and he attacked the pursuers. A move to the north seemed to promise escape, but soon they saw a camp on a hill top. Su Huang went ahead to reconnoiter, and found the officers in command were Ma Yen and Chang Ai, who had once been in the service of Yün-ChʻAn. They had 3 companies of northern men in camp. They had seen the sky redden with the flames, but knew not what was afoot, so dared make no move. This turned out lucky for Tsao, who now found himself with a fresh force. He sent these two, with a company, to clear the road ahead while the others remained as guard, and he felt much more secure. The two went forward, but before they had gone very far they heard a shouting, and a party of soldiers came out, the leader of them shouting, "I am Kan H. Singpa of the land of Wu." Nothing daunted, the two leaders would engage, but the redoubtable Kan Ning cut down Ma Yin, and when his brother warrior Chang I set his spear and dashed forward, he too fell beneath a stroke from the fearsome sword. Both leaders dead, the soldiers fled to give Tsao the bad news. At this time Tsao expected aid from Hofei, for he knew not that Sun Yün was barring the road. But when Sun saw the fires, and so knew that his men had won the day, he ordered Luo Guanzhong to give the answering signal. Tashi Tizu, seeing this, came down, and his force joined up with that of Luo Guanzhong, and they went against Tsao. As for Tsao, he could only get away toward Yiling. On the road he fell in with Chang Ho and ordered him to protect the retreat. He pressed on as quickly as possible. At the 5th watch he was a long way from the glare, and he felt safer. He asked the name of the place where they were. They told him it was west of the Black Forest and north of Idu. Seeing the thickly crowded trees all about him, and the steep hills and narrow passes, he threw up his head and laughed. Those about him asked why he was merry, and he said he was only laughing at the stupidity of Chu Yu and the ignorance of Chuko Liang. If they had only set an ambush there, as he would have done, why, there was no escape. He had scarcely finished his explanation when from both sides came a deafening roll of drums, and flames sprang up to heaven. Tsao nearly fell off his horse, he was so startled. And from the side dashed in a troop, with Ko Yun leading, who cried, "I am Ko Tzulung, and long have I been waiting here." Tsao ordered Huayung and Chang Ho to engage this new opponent, and he himself rode off into the smoke and fire. Ko Yun did not pursue. He only captured his banners, and Tsao escaped. The faint light of dawn showed a great black cloud all around, for the southeast wind had not ceased. Suddenly began a heavy downpour of rain, wetting everyone to the skin, but still Tsao maintained his headlong flight till the starved faces of the men made a halt imperative. He told the men to forage in the villages about for grain and the means of making a fire. But when these had been found and they began to cook a meal, another pursuing party came along, and Tsao again was terrified. However, these proved to be friends escorting some of his advisers whom he saw with joy. When giving the order to advance again, he asked what places lay ahead, and they told him there were 2 roads. One was the highway to South Yiling, and the other a mountain road to the north of Yiling. "Which is the shorter way to Chiangling?" asked Tsao. "The best way is to take the south road through Huliku," was the reply. So he gave orders to march that way. By the time Huliku was reached, the men were almost starving and could march no more. Horses too were worn out. Many had fallen by the roadside. A halt was then made, food was taken by force from the villagers, and as there were still some boilers left, they found a dry spot beside the hills where they could rest and cook. And there they began to prepare a meal, boiling grain and roasting strips of horseflesh. Then they took off their wet clothes and spread them to dry. The beasts, too, were unsaddled and turned out to graze. Seated comfortably in a somewhat open spot, Tsao suddenly looked up and began to laugh loud and long. His companions, remembering the sequel of his last laugh, said, "Not long since, sir, you laughed at Chu Yu and Chuko Liang. That resulted in the arrival of Ko Yun and great loss of men to us. Why do you now laugh?" "I am laughing again at the ignorance of the same 2 men. If I was in their place and conducting their campaign, I should have had an ambush here, just to meet us when we were tired out. Then, Even if we escaped with our lives, we should suffer very severely. They did not see this, and therefore I am laughing at them." Even at that moment behind them rose a great yell. Thoroughly startled, Tsao threw aside his breastplate and leaped upon his horse. Most of the soldiers failed to catch theirs, and then fires sprang up on every side and filled the mouth of the valley. A force was arrayed before them, and at the head was the man of Yen, Chang Fei, seated on his steed with his great spear leveled. "Whither wouldst thou flee, O rebel?" shouted he. The soldiers grew cold within at the sight of the terrible warrior. Chu, mounted on a barebacked horse, rode up to engage him, and 2 comrades galloped up to his aid. The 3 gathered about Chang Fei, and a melee began, while Tsao made off at top speed. The other leaders set off after him, and Chang Fei pursued. However, Tsao by dint of hard riding got away, and gradually the pursuers were outdistanced. But many had received wounds. As they were going, the soldiers said, "There are 2 roads before us, which shall we take?" "Which is the shorter?" asked Tsao. "The high road is the more level, but it is 50 li longer than the by road which goes to Huayung. Only the latter road is narrow and dangerous, full of pits and difficult." Tsao sent men up to the hilltops to look around. They returned saying there were several columns of smoke rising from the hills along the road. The high road seemed quiet. Then Tsao bade them lead the way along the by road. "Where smoke arises there are surely soldiers," remarked the officers. "Why go this way?" "Because the Book of War says that the hollow is to be regarded as solid, and the solid as hollow. That fellow Chuko Liang is very subtle, and has sent men to make those fires so that we should not go that way. He has laid an ambush on the high road. I have made up my mind, and I will not fall a victim to his wiles." "O Minister, your conclusions are most admirable. None other can equal you," said the officers. And the soldiers were sent along the highway. They were very hungry, and many almost too weak to travel. The horses, too, were spent. Some had been scorched by the flames, and they rode forward resting their heads on their whips. The wounded struggled on to the last of their strength. All were soaking wet, and all were feeble. Their arms and accoutrements were in a deplorable state, and more than half had been left upon the road they had traversed. Few of the horses had saddles or bridles, for in the confusion of pursuit they had been left behind. It was the time of greatest winter cold, and the suffering was indescribable. Noticing that the leading party had stopped, Tsao sent to ask the reason. The messenger returned to report that by reason of the rain water collected in the pits, and the mire the horses could not move. Tsao raged. He said, "When soldiers come to hills they cut a road, when they happen upon streams they bridge them. Such a thing as mud cannot stay an army." So he ordered the weak and wounded to go to the rear and come on as they could, while the robust and able were to cut down trees, and gather herbage and reeds to fill up the holes. And it was to be done without delay, or death would be the punishment of the disobedient or remiss. So the men dismounted and felled trees and cut bamboos, and they leveled the road. And because of the imminence and fear of pursuit, a party was told off to hasten the workers and slay any that idled. The soldiers made their way along the shallower parts, but many fell, and cries of misery were heard the whole length of the way. "What are you howling for?" cried Tsao. "The number of your days is fixed. Anyone who howls shall be put to death." The remnant of the army now divided into 3, one to march slowly, a second to fill up the waterways and hollows, and a third to escort Tsao, gradually made its way over the precipitous road. When the going improved a little and the path was moderately level, Tsao turned to look at his following, and saw he had barely 300 men. and these lacked clothing and armor and were tattered and disordered. But he pressed on, and when the officers told him the horses were quite spent and must rest, he replied, "Press on to Qingchu, and there we shall find repose." So they pressed on. But they had gone only a few li when Tsao flourished his whip and broke once again into loud laughter. "What is there to laugh at?" asked the officers. "People say those two are able and crafty. I do not see it. They are a couple of incapables. If an ambush had been placed here, we should all be prisoners." He had not finished this speech when the explosion of a bomb broke the silence, and a half-company of men with swords in their hands appeared and barred the way. The leader was Kuan Yu, holding the famous black dragon sword, bestriding the red hare steed. At this sight, the spirits of the soldiers left them, and they gazed into each other's faces in panic. "Now we have but one course," said Tsao. "We must fight to the death." "How can we?" said the officers. "The men are scared, the horses are spent." Yu said, "I have always heard that Kuan Yu is haughty to the proud but kindly to the humble. He despises the strong, but is gentle with the weak. He discriminates between love and hate and is always righteous and true. You, O minister, have shown him kindness, and if you will remind him of that, we shall escape this evil." Tsao agreed to try. He rode out to the front, bowed low, and said, "General, I trust you have enjoyed good health." "I had orders to await you, O minister," replied he, bowing in return, "and I have been expecting you these many days. You see before you Tsao, defeated and weak. I have reached a sad pass, and I trust you, O general, will not forget the kindness of former days. Though indeed you were kind to me in those days, yet I slew your enemies for you and relieved the siege of Pema. As to the business of today, I cannot allow private feelings to outweigh public duty. Do you remember my generals, slain at the 5 passes? The noble man values righteousness. You are well versed in the histories and must recall the action of Yü-ChʻAn, the archer, when he found his master Tzu-Cho in his power. Kuan Yu was indeed a very mountain of goodness, and could not forget the great kindness he had received at Tsao's hands, and the magnanimity he had shown over the deeds at the 5 passes. He saw the desperate straits to which his benefactor was reduced, and tears were very near to the eyes of both. He could not press him hard. He pulled at the bridle of his steed and turned away, saying to his followers, "Break up the formation." From this it was evident that his design was to release Tsao, who then went on with his officers, and when Kuan Yu turned to look back they had all passed. He uttered a great shout, and the soldiers jumped off their horses and knelt on the ground crying for mercy. But he also had pity for them. Then Chang Liao, whom he knew well, came along and was allowed to go free also. Tsao, his army lost, fled to the Huayung valley. There in the throat of the gorge met he Kuan Yu. Grateful was Kuan, and mindful of former kindness, wherefore slipped he the bolt and freed the imprisoned dragon. Having escaped this danger, Tsao hastened to get out of the valley. As the throat opened out, he glanced behind him and saw only 207 horsemen. As evening fell, they reached Nanchun, and they came upon what they took to be more enemies. Tsao thought the end had surely come, but to his delight, they were his own men, and he regained all his confidence. Yün-ChʻAn, who was the leader, said that he had heard of the misfortunes of his master, but he was afraid to venture far from his charge, else he would have met him before. "I nearly missed you as it was," said Tsao. The fugitives found repose in the city, where Chang Liao soon joined them. He also praised the magnanimity of Kuan Yu. When Tsao mustered the miserable remnant of his host, he found nearly all were wounded, and he bade them rest. Yün-ChʻAn poured the wine of consolation, whereby his master might forget his sorrows. And as Tsao drank among his familiars, he became exceedingly sad. Wherefore they said, "O minister, when you were in the cave of the tiger and trying to escape, you showed no sign of sorrow. Now that you are safe in a city, where you have food and the horses have forage, where all you have to do is to prepare for revenge, suddenly you lose heart and grieve. Why thus?" Replied Tsao, "I am thinking of my friend Kuo. Had he been alive, he would not have let me suffer this loss. He beat his breast and wept, saying, 'Alas for Nh'Sayo! I grieve for Nh'Sayo! I sorrow for Nh'Sayo!' The reproach shamed the advisers. Next day Tsao called Yün-ChʻAn and said, 'I am going to the capital to prepare another army for revenge. You are to guard this district, and in case of necessity, I leave with you a sealed plan. You are only to open the cover when hard pressed, and then you are to act as directed. Wu will not dare to look this way. Who is to guard Hofei and Hsiang? Qingchu is particularly your care, and Hsiang is to hold Hsiang. As Hofei is most important, I am sending Chang Liao thither with good aids. If you get into difficulties, send at once to tell me.' Having made these dispositions, Tsao set off at once with a few followers. He took with him the officers who had come over to his side when Qingchu fell into his hands. Tsao placed Hung in charge of the south of Yiling. After having allowed the escape of Tsao, Kuan Yu found his way back to headquarters. By this time, the other detachments had returned, bringing spoil of horses and weapons, and supplies of all kinds. Only Kuan Yu came back empty-handed. When he arrived, Chuko Liang was with his brother congratulating him on his success. When Kuan Yu was announced, Huayung got up and went to welcome him, bearing a cup of wine. "Joy, O General," said he. "You have done a deed that overtops the world. You have removed the country's worst foe and ought to have been met at a distance and felicitated." Kuan Yu muttered inaudibly, and Huayung continued, "I hope it is not because we have omitted to welcome you on the road that you seem sad." Turning to those about him, he said, "Why did you not tell us he was coming?" "I am here to ask for death," said Kuan Yu. "Surely Tsao came through the valley." "Yes, he came that way, and I could not help it. I let him go." "Then whom have you captured?" "No one." "Then you remembered the old kindness of Tsao, and so allowed him to escape. But your acceptance of the task with its conditions is here. You will have to suffer the penalty." He called in the lictors, and told them to take away Kuan Yu and put him to death. Kuan Yu risked life when he spared Tsao in direst need, an age-long admiration gained for kindly deed. What actually befell will be seen in the next chapter.